Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to unpack a worldview that is honestly deeply countercultural. It's all laid out in a 2011 text by Feng, and we'll be exploring the philosophy of Lifechanyuan, specifically resuming in on its incredibly radical approach to relationships and, well, romantic detachment. It's just a totally fascinating conceptual framework, and digging into the internal logic of this text is an absolute trip. So let's dive right in, shall we?
Listen to this. In our home, we do not encourage having a special someone. We oppose it. And the text actually goes on to say they specifically oppose the one-to-one kind of relationship. Talk about a cold open, right? I mean, right out of the gate, the source material just completely dismantles one of the absolute most fundamental norms of global human society, romantic exclusivity. It's a super stark mandate. But why, What is the philosophical engine driving such a strict rule?
Well, here's our roadmap for today. Have no special someone. Redefining the one, the burden of possession, organization without organization, and finally returning to zero. We're going to systematically deconstruct this philosophy's logic, moving all the way from the micro-individual level up to the macro-societal level.
All right, Section 1. Have no special someone. The core mandate. So, like we just heard in that opening quote, the text doesn't just kind of casually suggest avoiding traditional relationships. It strongly, vehemently opposes one-to-one exclusivity. In this community, which they refer to as our home, having a special someone isn't seen as a source of comfort or stability like it is for most of us. Instead, it's viewed as a fundamental error in how a person ought to live. And to be clear, this isn't framed as just a quirky lifestyle choice. It's a spiritual imperative. To really grasp why exclusivity is rejected so hard, we have to understand how this specific worldview interprets ancient wisdom.
Which brings us to Section 2, Redefining the One, a semantic shift.
Now, you might be wondering about pushback. The text actually addresses a really common counterargument. Some folks defend exclusive relationships by quoting the ancient saying, "The saint embraces the one and sets an example for the world." They use it to basically say, hey, I like one-to-one. I just want my one person. But Feng argues this is a complete, fundamental misunderstanding of the word one. If you strictly interpret one as a literal mathematical singular, well, the author dares you to apply that logic to the rest of your life. Imagine it. Eat only one bite per meal, eat one bun in your entire life, wear literally one piece of clothing forever, use only one toilet, walk only one road, ride the exact same vehicle forever. It sounds completely absurd, right? The text uses this rapid-fire list of metaphors to just hammer home how restrictive and frankly illogical a literal interpretation of one truly is. So if the one isn't a mathematical number, what the heck is it? Well, we have to trade our mainstream definition of a mathematical singularity for the Chanyuan definition, which is wholeness. The source text argues that embracing the one actually means seeing wholeness. It means looking at all women or all men collectively as one. Only when you view humanity in its entirety without singling out one specific individual just for yourself are you truly embracing the one. It's a massive paradigm shift. You're moving from possessing an individual to embracing an entire collective.
All right, Section 3, the burden of possession and the cost of attachment.
Okay, let's be real. This is the natural Socratic question we're all probably asking right now, isn't it? And the text actively anticipates it, asking directly, if one-to-one ties you down, can I have several special someones? Wouldn't that give me more freedom? I mean, it's a totally logical leap. If the core problem is being tied down to just one person, surely having 3, 4, or 5 partners solves that restriction problem, right? Let's see how the philosophy tackles this one. The text answers this by presenting a really stark trade-off between two entirely different life paths. If your goal is simply to live a standard human life, then yeah, the text admits that possessing multiple partners totally gives you more options and more breathing room so you don't feel quite so suffocated. However, the catch is that every single possession carries a cost. The more you possess, the more troubles and costs are inevitably going to follow you. But if you're aiming for a cultivator life, meaning someone striving to become a celestial being or a Buddha, even having 10 partners is completely wrong. The ultimate practice must be to possess no one. The promised result? Attaining formlessness and reaching these higher spiritual realms referred to as the Elysium world or the Celestial Islands continent.
And here is the absolute kicker. The moment your heart holds someone as yours, it becomes fixed by the image. This is the ultimate spiritual barrier of attachment.
The text is actually drawing heavily on the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni here regarding formlessness. By claiming someone as yours, and honestly, whether it's one person or 10 people doesn't matter, your mind becomes attached. It gets fixed and trapped by that specific form or image. You literally lose out on the highest spiritual realm because your heart is tethered to a worldly possession.
Which brings us to Section 4, Organization Without Organization, Scaling the Philosophy.
So how does a community actually function like this without descending into total chaos? To answer that, the text introduces this fascinating concept called Hundunic management. It's described as literally the highest form of management, which is, paradoxically, management without managing. The author claims that Lifechanyuan factually has no formal organization and no fixed rules. Yet somehow, it operates with this heavenly order and harmony. By completely removing traditional boundaries of ownership, including, who romantically belongs to whom, the group supposedly mirrors the principles of the heavenly kingdom. It's this idea of an order that arises entirely naturally from within, rather than being forced onto people by outside rules.
Because of all this, the text takes a very firm, uncompromising stance. Having someone completely and utterly violates Chanyuan values. Whether it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-7, the philosophy dictates that any form of possession blocks your ascension. If you hold on to a special someone, you remain a worldly person, and you actively prevent yourself from entering heaven. So the stakes, according to this worldview, literally could not be any higher.
Finally, Section 5, Returning to Zero, the ultimate practice.
So what does this actually look like in practice on a random Tuesday? The text lays out a very specific, step-by-step methodology for how you should interact with people. Step 1, adapt to where you are, and just flow with what comes, acting entirely by your true nature in the moment. Step 2, don't fix your mind on loving just one person. Instead, interact, talk about love, and flirt freely with whoever you meet. But here is the really critical pivot in Step 3. When that moment passes, you have to let it vanish. The text uses these gorgeous poetic metaphors. It says the interaction should vanish like wind blowing through sparse bamboo, leaving no sound, or like geese crossing over a cold pond, leaving absolutely no trace behind. And finally, Step 4, always return to zero. You must reset completely. You cannot carry any emotional debt or lingering attachment into the very next moment.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly striking paradox from the text. To have nothing is to have everything, just as owning nothing is the doorway to owning all. The entire philosophy argues that ultimate freedom and spiritual wholeness can only be achieved through complete, total, romantic, and personal detachment. By letting go of the desperate desire to possess a special someone, they believe they actually gain the entire universe. It's just a profound subversion of how mainstream society typically views love and human connection. So what do you think about this vision of ultimate freedom? Does owning absolutely nothing truly open the door to owning it all? It's definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.